Yeah, another win for Arsenal and another clean sheet for Arsenal. All about momentum and keeping that going after that victory against Newcastle on Sunday, wasn't it, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. Two 2-0 wins in the Champions League so far. 2 wins from 2, the only English team with a 100% record. And yeah, I think it's very important for Arsenal in this very important period coming up. It's next 4 to 6 games in the Premier League especially. Very favourable, especially compared to Liverpool. They've got to play Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City before the next international break in November. So yeah, it's a good win for Arsenal, and yeah, important for other players as well, like Martin Odegaard, to come back and get some rhythm in the game, especially after a disappointing start to the season. And he's not the only one. Bukayo Saka as well, bit stop start, and yeah, I think it's important not for the team but for some individuals as well.
Now, I've just been in the news conference with Mikel Arteta, and I put it to him, when you turn around and look at your bench, it's a big difference to the bench that he had last season compared to this season, and in particular with this Olympiacos game. I mean, the likes of Eberechi Eze, Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka, to name 3 who you can call upon.
It's probably a 7-a-side team or a 9-a-side team that could probably beat Arsenal's first team 11 on the pitch, absolutely. So yeah, I think that's definitely a difference. He said last season they had to play 4 or 5 academy graduates who had never played professional football before, and that is a huge difference. Once again, we've seen it with the late goals, the finishers, as Mikel Arteta calls them, the substitutes off the bench, getting those important goals and points in the Premier League. I think we've seen it here. When you look at Liverpool and how they rotated in Galatasaray and they didn't get the results, and of course there's a huge difference getting a result at Galatasaray compared to a home game here, but when you look at how they rotate and look at how Arsenal are rotating, it's very different. It's bringing very different results, and that can only be a positive for Mikel Arteta.
You say only a positive for Mikel Arteta. Have you noticed anything different about the manager himself and his demeanour compared to the last couple of seasons, and is it reflected with the squad that he's got to call upon?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you see Gabriel come off injured, and normally last season you think Mikel Arteta would be pulling his hair out, you'd feel the nervousness, the anxiousness around the stadium. There wasn't really that because Christian Mosquera has been signed and he's had an excellent start to the season. He had a bit of an iffy game at Newcastle in that first half and came off at half time, but it does seem like a calmer Arsenal, a very different Arsenal. And again, that's only a positive, because from here on in, really important games coming up, really important period. And yeah, Arsenal, it's very, very early in the season to say they're favourites, but you probably think they're in the better place right now than Liverpool, coming up to a really critical point.
Yeah, you say critical point. Important games coming up, as you mentioned, Sam. Next up here at the Emirates, it's West Ham United, and if Arsenal can make it another win there, they will go top of the Premier League for a few hours at least anyway.
Odegaard firing just makes me think of that kind of Kevin De Bruyne, Rasmus Højlund link, but that Rasmus and the Haaland link. Odegaard seems like that kind of player who will find that man who wants to get on the back of the defenders, careering through. That first goal was a really good sign for Arsenal.
Yeah, a couple of balls on a plate for the front boys.
Yeah, when he's at his best, he's up there amongst the best number 10s in world football. He hasn't been at his best for a while now.
I'm sure he'd admit that.
And he would admit that because, he's got to take responsibility. He's the captain, he's the leader in that dressing room. I just think looking all round at Arsenal, you look at the fullbacks coming in, White, Lewis, Kelly, the 2 centre-halves they got on the bench pushing, the 2 boys there. Everything about the club, young players who are hungry, who are important to have to drive the group. They've got all of the ingredients now. Like, there's no excuses now. The Arsenal... April, if you could fast forward to April, May, and Arsenal was still in the Champions League, which I think they will be, quarterfinals, semi-finals, chasing the league, that's the time they'll trip themselves up, because that's if they've not developed, because they've got to be able to work out how to compete every 3 days with the pressure. And the fans do this silly thing where they start getting nervous. You can't, you can't, because it's been such a long time, and that, they've got to really find a way at Arsenal at the back end of the season. There's no doubt they'll be there with the quality.
Arsenal are third favourites to win the Champions League, if you fancy to flutter right now. Interesting that PSG and Barcelona are still joint favourites, considering what we witnessed earlier on today. Liverpool, of course, losing against Galatasaray 3-2. Bayern Munich 9-1. A lot of those teams, of course, there's a lot of work to be done with a lot of those sides, including Arsenal, of course, but I don't think...
Where are you going with this?
I don't know. They want me to ask who's going to...
You're looking at this graphic. I think just get that graphic and kick it into the trash can.
It's so far away.
Right.
You know, winning this thing
Yes.
is months and months away. And we talked about this the other day, we saw how the worm can turn for a team like it turned for PSG, who had a really difficult and unconvincing start to the Champions League last year, and then hit the straps around about the turn of the year and were by far the best team in Europe come the end of it. So, you know, a lot of teams are trying to figure stuff out, particularly like, say, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, who were defeated yesterday. So, you know, to be honest with you, there's a few teams we shouldn't even bother putting on that list. But I wouldn't be putting any money on Arsenal to win this competition.
Arsenal are favourites for not just the Premier League, but for the Champions League as well. Why?
That's outrageous. That honestly, that is outrageous. To make them favourites for the Premier League and the Champions League, that makes them they're favourites to do the double. Arsenal. I mean, how can that make sense? They've not won the Premier League since 2004, and they've never won the Champions League. Do not tell me they're favourites for the Champions League. They're a good side, Arsenal, and they're playing some decent football. They're strong at the back, and they've improved the bench. But they ain't won nothing. That's what people need to understand. They haven't won. They haven't got it over the line. Real Madrid have won the Champions League, 14 times? Don't tell me Arsenal are the favourites because they look like they've got a good team. Living in cuckoo land. And the Premier League, they won it since 2004.
Surely your gripe isn't with Arsenal fans, though, it's with the odds, because these are the bookies' favourites. Arsenal didn't make themselves favourites. By the way, there's a fan called Graham, a Liverpool fan, says he believes that if Odegaard stays fit and has a solid season, Arsenal win the league. That's a Liverpool fan. I mean, there's no proof he's a Liverpool fan. He hasn't said himself a Liverpool shit. You know what I mean?
He's Graham from Hertfordshire. No, look, Arsenal are a good side. They're a really good side. And, you know, they've improved the squad. They've signed players. They've filled holes that they needed to fill. You know, they've got a target man in Gyökeres. They look good. Defensively, they do. But when it comes to the crunch, when it comes to the business end of the season, the championship rounds, yeah, I don't see them winning because I've watched them enough over the last 5 or 6 seasons with Arteta in charge. They crumble. It's as simple as that. Man City don't. Man City, when they're fighting it out, when they've won the Premier League 4 years on the bounce, they know how to win. They keep winning when it matters. Liverpool done the same. Arsenal don't. So how can you make them favourites because they've got a decent squad? Come on, do me a favour.
I'm very happy. Obviously, winning the Champions League is always very complicated. Keeping another clean sheet, we make something 11 in 14 games, which is remarkable from the boys. I think we started the game really well. I think we looked at a real threat, really dynamic, really playing forward, a lot of run, a lot of threats. Generated the goal and another 2 or 3 big chances, and we don't put them away in this competition. You have to be careful. The first arrival, David had to make an incredible save to deny the goal, which you need in this competition as well. And after that, we had moments of a lot of dominance, as you said, and some others that without control and dominating a direct play, we got a little bit deeper. And every time they put balls in the box with the crosses, a team that is very, very dangerous. At the end, again, missed 2 big chances, but at the end, find a way with Bukayo to score a goal and breathe a little bit in the first few minutes because it's a team that ended up the game really well. I think they won 5 already this season in the last few minutes, and we discussed that. They're going to keep believing till the end, and they made it difficult to the end.
That loves talking, like a whole bunch of managers actually loves talking about control and controlling the game. And remember, he told us how much they controlled the game against Man City when they were losing 1-0 at home. He wouldn't have liked, I think, what he saw in the second half because it turned into a very wide open game. As we saw Arsenal, plenty of chances in the first half. Olympiacos came back. They were dangerous. We saw those Raya saves. And, you know, I think Arteta decided to rotate, play some second stringers or maybe I'm being unkind here, but make some changes from the lineup to which we're accustomed. Obviously, we saw Ben White, Lewis Skelly, who I thought did okay. We saw Marino midfield. You had Rice, you had Saka on the bench, you had Timber on the bench. And what happens? All those guys come on in the second half because you could tell he was extremely grumpy until Saka scored that second goal in injury time.
And we saw Gyökeres, of course, play a key part in the opening goal. Gab, how was his performance?
thought it was good in the first half against Olympiacos. Tailed off a little bit. I think this is one of those games where had Arsenal taken their chances in the first half hour, and then they're 2-3 goals up, and then the second half doesn't unfold the way it did. It was very clear what Mendilibar was trying to do with Olympiacos. He's obviously a savvy coach, a Europa League winner. Soak up the pressure, weather the storm, and then hit them. And they have some very gifted players, technically gifted anyway. And obviously Daniel Podence, who we saw, Joshua Martins as well, Chiquinho. And it really felt like Arsenal lost their bearings early in the second half. And hey, it helps when you can bring the likes of Rice and Saka off the bench. But I think this underscores how it's great to have so many options, such a deep squad. But when you play your second stringers, even if they're talented, you lose a little bit, I think, in terms of chemistry.
There were a few times that Victor Gyökeres would have believed on this night that his first Arsenal Champions League goal was just a moment away, although by the end of 90 minutes he and his teammates were still trying to secure the win. Eventually it was done 2 minutes into time added on by the substitute Bukayo Saka, sent on by Mikel Arteta to finish off an Olympiacos team that had proved unexpectedly robust. The Greek champions had gone behind on 12 minutes from a Gabriel Martinelli goal that was very nearly won for Gyökeres. After that, the 64 million man from Sweden was chasing the goal that had just slipped away from him. Gyökeres has 3 goals in 8 games in all competitions for Arsenal, which is not too bad but not exactly Erling Haaland numbers. In Monaco, Haaland scored his 11th of the season for Manchester City, 17 in 10 overall, and is in a league of his own. That brings its own pressure for the other big goal-scoring names in the Premier League behind Haaland and Mohamed Salah. Gyökeres' composure frayed a little when the chances came. Early days yet, and certainly for the goal that Martinelli scored there was a powerful run from Gyökeres to create the opening. The Portuguese defender Costinha was brushed aside and the shot from Gyökeres was blocked by the goalkeeper Konstantinos Tsoulakis, although only enough that it dribbled onto the post before Martinelli did the rest. Arsenal smelt goals in this game, but it would take them another 80 minutes to get their second. That was made by Martin Odegaard, back in the Arsenal side and the outstanding player for the home team. His pass made the run for Gyökeres for that shot that created the first goal. Then it was Odegaard who played in Saka down the left for the second. In between there was much shrewd drifting into space and some beautiful passes from the Arsenal number 8. Odegaard should have scored too, were it not for another outstanding save from Tsoulakis on 82 minutes. Arteta changed 6 players from the late win at St James Park on Sunday with Declan Rice, Saka, Eberechi Eze and Jurriën